I'm delighted to introduce our closing keynote for this afternoon, Melanie Nutter. Melanie Nutter is the principal of Nutter Consulting and provides sustainability and smart city strategy development and implementation for cities, foundations, and companies. Prior to this role, Mayor Gavin Newsom appointed Melanie as the director of the San Francisco Department of Environment, where she continued to serve for Mayor Edwin Lee through February 2014. Nutter led the department in its first-in-the-nation policy initiatives, including outreach and education on sustainable practices and innovative environmental programs on zero waste, green building, climate and energy, toxics reduction, and clean transportation. During her tenure, San Francisco achieved an 80% waste diversion rate, reduced its carbon emissions to 14.5% 1990 levels, and was named the greenest city in North America by Siemens and the Economist Intelligence Unit. So please join me in welcoming Melanie Nutter.
So I wanted to first of all thank Camille for the invitation to come and speak today. As was just mentioned, I used to run the Department of the Environment for the city of San Francisco. So I am a practitioner. I'm one of the city people who was on the government side trying to figure out the space and figure out how to work with academia, with the private sector, with my colleagues in the city to advance our sustainability goals, but really to understand the role that technology and data can play in doing that. So what Camille asked me to do is to come and talk a little bit about my experience running the Department of the Environment for San Francisco and weave in some of the accomplishments that we've had as it relates to integrating technology and data, and also give you a preview of what's up next for San Francisco and more broadly for sustainability directors. So again, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. So as was mentioned by one of the audience members, we're facing some serious issues nationally and globally. As some of you may have seen the statistic, urban populations will double globally by 2050. That's 7 billion people to be living in our cities by 2050. So we know that cities are definitely part of the problem and have to be part of the solution. As was also referred to, carbon emissions are continuing to grow. Right now, cities themselves contribute about 75% of the greenhouse gas emissions globally. So again, cities and urban environments are where we really need to focus to ensure that we can ward off some of the worst effects of climate change. And we know that this population growth, as well as greenhouse gas emission reductions that we're seeing increase, is having an impact on our natural resources, whether it's our fresh water supplies that are becoming polluted, our farmlands that are being depleted, or our energy resources that are becoming stretched. And this is also on the infrastructure side in cities. This population growth and greenhouse gas emissions are putting a lot of pressure on our aging infrastructure in our urban environments, both in the US as well as globally. Again, whether it's our transportation systems that we're seeing overloaded. We, of course, see this in and around the Bay Area as traffic is becoming horrendous. Our housing stock is shrinking and prices are rising. Again, this is no news to you who all live in the Bay Area. And our open spaces and parklands are disappearing with the pressure of population and greenhouse gas emissions. At the same time, we are seeing a change in our world. This is the inevitable march of technology, and this rapid expansion of innovation and technology is something that cities are just starting to understand. Some of the companion statistics are mobile phones, as you all know, are pervasive. Right now, there are almost as many cell phone subscriptions on the earth, that's 6.8 billion, as there are people. This took simply 20 years. So this is an inevitable rapid expansion of mobile phones and mobile phone devices. And broadband access, of course, is increasing in the proliferation of big data. So cities started to ask, when you put all of these pieces together, the problems that we're facing, the rapid innovation and expansion of big data and cell phones, is there a way to merge and marry those problems and a potential solution to find a way forward in addressing our climate change challenges as well as our sustainability issues in cities? And there's a report that was published that the Urban Sustainability Directors Network, that I work very closely with, came upon, which essentially says that ICT has the potential to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 9.1 gigatons in the next 5 years, When city sustainability directors saw the statistic, that was really a game changer. City sustainability directors said, this could be a potential solution. It's not going to be the silver bullet, but we want to understand how this could work. So one of the projects that I worked on when I left the city is to work with the Urban Sustainability Directors Network, which, for those of you who don't know, is a network of about 140 sustainability directors from across the US and Canada. So these are individuals that work for mayors, they run city departments, and they get together on a regular basis to share best practices and try to accelerate sustainability. A lot of what they traditionally focus on is policy, financing mechanisms, behavior change, the social science of moving sustainability forward. There now is an effort within USDN to address IoT and smart cities. So this is the first report that we published a couple of years ago. I think a few of you have seen this report, called Getting Smart About Smart Cities. And these are the 11 cities that came together for a convening in San Francisco and to put this guide together to take the first step towards training non-technical municipal staff on what smart cities is and the promise that it holds for advancing sustainability. And this is the definition that we came up with that's in the guide. I'll read it again. This is just sort of to orient the rest of the talk, and what we're piecing together here is smart and sustainable solutions use information and communication technologies to collect, communicate, and analyze data to improve the design and operations of a city's core systems, infrastructure, and programs, as well as citizen engagement for greater efficiency and effectiveness, improving the city's sustainability, resilience, financial bottom line, and quality of life. You may read this definition and think it's a silver bullet, because it does include a lot in there that we want to achieve working with data and IoT. But it also, the significance of this definition is it's outcome focused. And this is really where cities and policymakers are getting interested in IoT and smart cities. As you know, it's not for the technology of itself. It's not for something cool that can be implemented and then the project is launched and that's the end of it. It's really about how this can really achieve the outcomes that policymakers and agency staff are working towards, especially as it relates to sustainability. So now to San Francisco. I want to give you a quick snapshot on bringing the 75% global emissions in cities down to the local level. This is what our carbon emissions look like in San Francisco very simply. We did a carbon emissions climate action strategy in 2010, and this was the inventory showing that 43% of greenhouse gas emissions in San Francisco comes from from transportation, 52% comes from building energy, and 5% comes from waste. So we know that if we're going to greatly reduce carbon emissions within the city, we have to tackle predominantly transportation and building energy. And these are the climate action goals that the city set. This was in our updated climate action strategy that came out in 2014, which is really to address those main areas. And the goals are generating 100% of electricity from renewable sources. This is by 2030. Achieving zero waste by 2020, and shifting transportation modes 50% out of cars by 2020, and also, of course, maximizing energy efficiency in buildings. This is affectionately known as the 0, 50, 100 plan for San Francisco to be able to reduce GHG emissions. So this is a little bit more of a complex diagram, but I wanted to put it up here to bring some of those pieces together. There's a foundation called the Ellen MacArthur Foundation that's operating out of England, and they just published a really interesting report that I was cited in called Intelligent Assets. And it's really looking at how sensors and IoT is being integrated into the urban environment and transforming all of these sectors that we're talking about. So it's a really interesting report called Intelligent Assets. But again, I will detail a few more of these, but looking at how to optimize city mobility using apps, improving traffic flow and reducing congestion, localized smart energy networks, and the list goes on and on. But really, this is an interesting report that pulls a lot of this together. This is a little bit more granular. This is from the second report that we did for USDN that's called Smart Cities for Sustainability, looking at each sustainability sector, buildings, transportation, and waste. And this is an infographic we put together for city staff to show where some of the technology and data interventions are within the buildings and energy sector. So of course you see making the grid more smart and resilient, crowdsourced and community solar, demand response, and customer engagement and shared efficiency targets. So in San Francisco, I've got a few examples to show you from San Francisco. When I was still with the city, we started working with a startup called Zenith. And they really wanted to create what Gordon was talking about is visualization scenarios for buildings in the city and county of San Francisco. So the very first iteration of the project that they'd put together for the city was taking all of the energy data that was being submitted to the city and county of San Francisco under an ordinance, that's a disclosure and transparency ordinance, taking all of that data and visually representing which buildings are green for energy efficient and which buildings are red as an energy hog. That was a visualization that they had originally put forward. This is the next iteration. It's what they call 5D modeling, and this is 555 California, and they're essentially going to be able to aggregate all of the building data that they're getting from the city and other sources and use these visualization techniques for building managers and property owners to be able to inspire behavior change and energy efficiency changing. I see that I have 5 minutes, so I'm going to go through these slides pretty quickly. This is another example in San Francisco. We did a solar and wind map. This is at sfsolarmap.org. And this is a place where you can put in any address in the city and county of San Francisco and see the solar or wind potential. It's really a great way to visualize the solar assets in San Francisco, which is about 4,000 installations, and also find out what the ability is for the building that you're in to access solar or wind. And up next in the building and energy sector, how we're going to continue to get to that 100% renewable energy goal. The Department of the Environment got a $2 million grant from the Department of Energy to scope out and implement 8 microgrids within the city and county of San Francisco. So that's a new project that is underway and being scoped. So moving on to the transportation sector, this is, again, an infographic from our Smart Cities for Sustainability report. And I'm sure that there was a lot of talk earlier about transportation and how transportation is really a platform and a venue for IoT to make change for the infrastructure in cities as well as for residents and really improving quality of life. So IoT, of course, is impacting everything from bike sharing to ride sharing to payment applications to parking and smart street lights. In the city and county of San Francisco, a lot of individuals use RideScout, which is now with Movil. They were acquired, but really trying to find solutions for our residents to have all of their mobility options in one place. And mobile transit payment systems, this is not something new in cities like London that have the Oyster card, or in this case, Chicago that has a Venture card. But a lot of cities are looking at how to have a one-stop shop card to be able to use multiple transit systems. And this is an app in the city and county of San Francisco. Many of you probably have seen this. It was actually funded by federal stimulus dollars. And what it did is essentially provided a way for you to see the pricing of open parking spots as well as where those parking spots were. There is a direct connection to the information that was provided to residents through this app. It greatly reduced the idling that was happening in San Francisco as well as reduced greenhouse gas emissions. And San Francisco also invested through stimulus dollars, actually, in 180 electric vehicle charging stations throughout the city. These are going to be integrated into what hopefully will be a winning application for the city to the Department of Transportation's Smart Cities Challenge that's going on right now. The city of San Francisco is one of the 8 finalists. And they're working to essentially integrate all of these strategies into a mobility system for the city and county of San Francisco that would be, of course, greener, it would be more convenient, and there is an equity component, really helping to provide lower income residents access to mobility throughout the city. And then lastly, just to touch on is the waste sector. San Francisco focuses a lot on our zero waste program. The goal is to achieve 100% diversion from the landfill by 2020. We're right now at 80% diversion from the landfill, which is one of the nation's highest diversion rates. And this is one of the frameworks actually from the Smart Cities for Sustainability report that shows again where are some of the interventions for technology and data in the waste system. So we started at avoiding the bin and the sharing economy and the way that the sharing economy has helped to reduce consumption. going all the way through engagement and awareness applications to energy recovery technologies. So as I mentioned, we're working to get to zero waste by 2020. And this is one website that the city created called RecycleWare. It's using a database of all of the locations for all types of drop-off sites. So it's everything from all of the Recology locations where you can bring different items that need to be recycled, as well as other locations. And then this is one potential new area for the city of San Francisco. Right now, the city does work with a company called Big Belly that has waste bins all along the Embarcadero and works with the port, and most of those have sensors in them. Right now, those are just being used to alert the port of when those bins are full for pickup, so they're able to know when they need to send out somebody to pick it up. The city is looking at a pilot that would actually streamline collection throughout the city and looking at more sensors on public space bins that could really help to reduce greenhouse gas emissions as well. So just in closing, a lot of the applications of sensors and data and technology in cities, of course, impacts our assets. But to really move the needle and to convince policymakers in particular or agency heads that smart cities needs to be part of the solution, they have to be citizen-centric. And so I know that point was made earlier, but this is really about how technology is serving the residents of the cities in the end. And again, these are just a few of the outcomes that when you're talking to a policymaker or talking to a city official, it really is about utilizing technology and IoT and sensors to achieve these outcomes, whether it's being a more engaged city, a more equitable city, or a lower carbon city. So thank you very much for the opportunity to share those thoughts, and looking forward to talking more.